Hare Krishna, Srinath Ji Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So, today we're starting a new chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One person is excited. And so this chapter is entitled, what is the title of this chapter? Opulence of the Absolute. What was the title of chapter 7? That's 9. I tricked her. It was 7. Knowledge of the Absolute. So in chapter 7, Krishna was giving knowledge of the Absolute. And in chapter 10, he is giving opulence of the Absolute. So, like I like to do at the beginning of any chapter, we'll spend a good amount of time setting the stage for this chapter of why Krishna has come to this topic. We may ask the question, opulence of the Absolute. If someone is going to speak about their opulences, that sometimes is a curious situation, is it not?
Yeah.
Someone is going to tell you how they are very rich, strong, smart, beautiful, famous. It's a head scratcher, right? Why Krishna is going to speak about his opulences. So let us set the stage for why Krishna is speaking this way. This is very, very important. Okay? So at the end of the 6th chapter, Krishna said that the highest of all yogis is the bhakti yogi. He had just explained Ashtanga Yoga. Chapter 6 is the chapter entitled Dhyana Yoga, which is explaining the 8-fold process of yoga. And at the end of that, he says, but of all yogis, the bhakta is highest of all. So starting in chapter 7, Krishna begins to give knowledge about him, knowledge of the Absolute. Krishna is the Absolute Truth. And we know from our understanding of the yoga ladder that what distinguishes bhakti from all other rungs of yoga is knowledge of Bhagavan. Knowledge of Krishna. In lower rungs of yoga, there's not yet realization of Bhagavan. There's a Bhagavan realization is not yet manifest. In Ashtanga Yoga, the perfection of Ashtanga Yoga leads to Paramatma realization. As we know in Srimad Bhagavatam, that is the second level of realizing Krishna. First is through, what's the first level of realization? The Brahmajyoti. The impersonal features of the Lord are realized. As one graduates and elevates, one then realizes the Paramatma features of Krishna. And the ultimate realization is Bhagavan realization. So in chapter 7, Krishna began to speak about knowledge about him so that we may begin to understand knowledge of Krishna. And then for the goal of being able to practice bhakti. So in chapter 8, he introduces the topic of Ananya Bhakti, this pure devotional service. The title of that chapter is also very important. What is the title of chapter 8? Attaining the Supreme. We should know all the titles of the chapters. The reason is there's a purpose in the flow from chapter to chapter to chapter. So Krishna has given knowledge of himself, and then he explains how to attain him. And he said it is through Ananya Bhakti, through pure bhakti. So then in the 9th chapter, the last chapter we discussed, Krishna then gave the most confidential knowledge. And he opens his chapter with this verse, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. This king of knowledge, Raja Vidya, it means knowledge. Guyam means confidential, the most confidential knowledge. Right? He gave. And it is the most purified. It's most purified. And many other characteristics he gave of this knowledge. And last week we discussed the conclusion, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the most confidential knowledge, we said. And we're going to see how that was almost correct. There's actually one more aspect that is even more confidential. But last time we met, Krishna explained how to perform bhakti. He said, do 4 things. Manmana, think of me. Mad bhakto, become my devotee. Offer obeisances and worship. He said, my devotee, the action of pure devotional service is these 4 things. Right? And prior to that verse, Krishna established the great potency of bhakti. He said, bhakti is so powerful that it attracts my attention, that it attracts me, Krishna is saying, to come and help, giving whatever you are missing, protecting whatever you have. It's so simple. Just a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or water. One can attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I gave the example last time that with a piece of fruit, can you attract the mayor of a city, the governor of a state, the leader of a country with a piece of fruit? But with a piece of fruit offered with love, you can attract the attention of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus the potency of bhakti. And it's in its simplicity. Doesn't require so much fanciful execution. It requires sweetness and intention of the heart. That's what it requires. And then he continued to say that this bhakti, even if one makes a mistake, one can become purified from that mistake. Even if one is born in a very low class, or one is in the most degraded of position, forget about where you're born, you've come to the most degraded of situation. Even that person, like myself, by practicing bhakti, can have some hope to be pulled out from that position. That's how powerful bhakti is. So Krishna spoke about that, and he concluded with this last verse of how to perform pure devotional service. Because in the 33rd verse, he said that in the prior verse, he was speaking of, in 33rd verse, they engage in loving service unto me. Right? So what does loving service mean? He then explained this most confidential knowledge. So when we entered this stage, now, still, in order to manmana, always think about Krishna, in order to become his devotee, to offer our obeisances. To offer our obeisances, first it requires some humility, right? I'll say this, don't take this literally, but if an ant is walking down the street, are you going to offer your obeisances to the ant? No. Because we may consider the ant to be insignificant. So who will we offer our obeisances to?
Somebody we consider superior to us.
Somebody we consider superior. Right? Somebody we consider worthy of our obeisances. Right? Even if we're in the most of humble positions, still we'll be discerning where to offer our obeisances. Right? So Krishna is saying, offer them to me. So we need to know something about Krishna a little bit further. Right? To understand why to Krishna. So now he is going to speak about his opulences. And the purpose of Krishna speaking of his opulences is not to make himself feel better. We speak about our glories to make ourselves feel better. Yes. Exactly. But Krishna always feels better. He doesn't have bad days. He doesn't need to post something on Facebook and then measure the likes and measure and have his happiness triggered by that. He is fully self-pleased. So why he is going to speak then about his opulences? He is speaking every single verse in this Bhagavad Gita for one purpose. What is the global, singular reason Krishna is speaking in this Bhagavad Gita?
To attract us, to serve Him, to bring us back to Him.
For what purpose?
For our happiness.
Krishna, in this specific context here, is trying to help his friend Arjuna. And how close is their friendship? Tight. They're very close. So he's giving the best of information he has to help his dear friend. And his only goal is to see his friend successful in life. Right? Just like any good friend, when somebody comes to them for advice, their goal is to help that person. So Krishna is speaking only to help him. So as we know, Arjuna is being in this position for our benefit. So Krishna is speaking about the opulences for whose benefit? So I know when I read this chapter is very interesting. Many reasons it's interesting. One, the pictures are contained right in the middle of this chapter. So you always know where you are in chapter 10. There's these 4 Chatur Sloki verses in chapter 10, which are considered the summary. These 4 verses contain the entire contents of the Bhagavad Gita. That's very interesting. There's these verses after that just seemingly speak about these various aspects of Krishna. I kind of wonder why. What is the purpose of it? I am an ocean, the greatest of oceans, and the splendor of the sun, and so on, speaking this way. So you may wonder why. So it's an interesting chapter. So let's understand why Krishna is speaking about his opulences. So I'll try to give an example. It's not perfect. None of them are when you try to compare it to Krishna, but just an example. Suppose you have a friend. You had a friend as you were growing up and educating and into school, and then you lost ways. And then later you come to know about some great things this friend went on to do. This friend went on to be a very successful business person. He was known for his piety, his generosity to his employees. He was known for the good he contributed to the world. He was known for all these great qualities. What happens to us as we hear about those activities? What happens in our mood? Want to meet. We become, what you're saying?
Want to meet us or
Who's our friend?
We want to get closer, we are happy.
We're closer, we are happy. Our appreciation for this friendship increase. Wow, my friend has done such an amazing thing. Okay? So the more we know the glories of someone, if we have envy of this person though, what happens? If we hear glories of someone we are envious of, then what happens?
then we get ill feeling.
We get upset. We get angry. We get very hurt. So Krishna opens this chapter, says, listen again, O mighty Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. So without an envious mood, one can understand this chapter. So Krishna is speaking these opulences to increase our attraction. Just like if we hear the opulences of someone that we know or like, our attraction for that person increases. So in chapter 7 when Krishna said, I am everything, apara apara shakti. It implies we are fully dependent on Krishna, right? We have no existence without Krishna. The sun, the rains, the soils, the air, everything we subsist on, it comes from Krishna, right? So we are left to know we have to surrender to Krishna, right? But that mood of surrender is not complete. So knowing the power and the all-pervading presence of Krishna, it still doesn't inspire love. So now Krishna is going to speak about his opulences to awaken our attraction, our love to Krishna. Not just our awe, but to increase our attraction. Understand the distinction between knowledge of the Absolute when he said, I am the taste of water, I am the essence of everything. It leads us to know we are never separated from Krishna. So it starts to begin a mood of surrender to Krishna. But with understanding the opulences of Krishna, it inspires one to practice then pure devotional service. Because in pure devotional service, one has no desire but to see Krishna happy. That can only manifest when there is love. A mother, when serving child in the middle of the night, that is the closest thing we can understand to pure love. It's not expecting a thank you card in return. It is doing it out of love, selflessly, because there's a great attraction to that child. So similarly, our mood to serve Krishna without any desires, not even desires to become free from birth, death, old age, and disease, or to become free from the difficulties of my life, or to become free from anything, just to please Krishna. In order to reach that stage of devotion, there must be this mood of love. And that love becomes inspired or increases by knowing the greatness of Krishna. Because we all love great people. We are attracted to the greatness of people. And so Krishna is going to explain his opulences. But if we understand that, Krishna's talking about himself, that's kind of, he's talking about how great he is. Not for his pleasure, but to inspire our mood. And in the 7th verse, I believe it's the 7th verse. Yes. So in the 7th verse, we see the conclusive result of knowing these opulences. Krishna says, one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. So actually, our Acharya Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains that until one becomes convinced and has faith in these opulences of Krishna, this mood of unalloyed, pure bhakti cannot manifest. So, faith and knowledge of these opulences is what inspires us to practice pure bhakti. He has described pure bhakti in the last verse, and now to build our faith into practicing this pure devotional service, Krishna is going to speak about his opulences. And without that, there can be no hope to bring about pure devotional service. So this is the framework for this chapter 10. It's a very important chapter. Now we can understand the importance of this chapter. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've read this chapter before, like I know I did. I read it the first time. I was sort of, confused. What's the relevance of this chapter? Now we understand. It leads to our faith in bhakti. We have some appreciation for Krishna's greatness, and now we're going to take that a step further and build our love and attraction for Krishna. Okay? Yes?
Why is opulences used in the plural? I thought it was just opulence.
Why is it used in the plural? That's a very good question. Well, let's read this verse because Prabhupada is going to comment on the opulences, and I will answer that question. So it's a perfect segue into that. So let us read the first verse.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bhuya eva mahabaho shrunu me paramam vachaha yatteham priyamanaya vakshyami hitakamyaya.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna. Because you are my dear friend, for your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I already have explained."
Yeah.
Purport. The word Bhagwan is explained thus by Parasara Muni, one who is in full six opulences, who has a full strength, full fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation, is Bhagwan, or Supreme Personality of Godhead. While Krishna was present on this earth, he displayed all six opulences. Therefore, great sages like Parasara Muni have all accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now Krishna is instructing Arjuna in more confidential knowledge of his opulences and his work. Previously, beginning with the 7th chapter, the Lord has already explained his different energies and how they are acting. Now, in this chapter, he explains his specific opulences to Arjuna. In the previous chapter, he has clearly explained his different energies to establish devotion and firm conviction. Again, in this chapter, he tells Arjuna about his manifestations and various opulences. The more one hears about the Supreme God, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. One should always hear about the Lord in the association of devotees. That will enhance one's devotional service. Discourses in the society of devotees can take place only among those who are really anxious to be in Krishna consciousness. Others cannot take part in such discourses. The Lord clearly tells Arjuna that because Arjuna is very dear to him, for his benefit, such discourses are taking place.
So, this verse is interesting because Krishna says, listen again. So it's indicating there is some sense of repetition, right? So a speaker will repeat something not because they have forgotten that they've already said this, but for point of emphasis and carrying it further. So there's some repetition to which chapter again? Chapter 7, right? Where Krishna gave knowledge of the Absolute. But he says, to clarify, don't breeze through this chapter. He says, better than what I have already explained. He's already explained the most confidential knowledge, right? So what can be better than the most confidential knowledge? That which will make us fixed in devotion. So Prabhupada says that to establish devotion and firm conviction. So to bring us to this point of pure bhakti, pure devotional service without any desires, these opulences are important. So let's understand the opulences now. So according to Parashar Muni, how many opulences are there? 6. But Krishna has how many opulences?
64.
He has 64 right here, unlimited. So he has 64 principal qualities, but he has unlimited opulences. How you can put a number on someone who is infinite? We cannot. Right? But we can say that there are 6 kind of categories of opulences. Okay? And who is qualified to be called a Bhagavan? one who is all six or in full. Right? So if I have some strength, am I Bhagavan?
No.
If I have some wealth, if I have some fame, some beauty, who is Bhagavan? One who has all wealth, all fame, all strength, all beauty, all intelligence, in all, what was the sixth one? Renunciation. We want 5, we don't want the 6th. We aspire for 5 of the 6 opulences. But the 6th is the most beautiful, actually. When we understand Krishna's mood of renunciation, that will lead us to renounce. Understanding Krishna's mood of renunciation will inspire us to renounce our lame and miserable attachments to the material world. So we always set renunciation off to the side and we focus on beauty and strength and wealth. But actually the mood of renunciation is so sweet, so beautiful. So that is why opulences are plural. Because actually Krishna has unlimited opulences, many varieties of opulence. Right? And if you think in the material world, right? If we look back in the history of time, we have people who have created mass followings, right? People who follow someone. Take away a spiritual context for a moment, right? Why is such a person able to gather such a following, such an attraction of so many people? What do they have?
Some quality or something that attracts people.
Charisma.
Yeah, they have some charisma, some feature, maybe some fame, some strength, some beauty, intelligence. They have one of these 6 opulences, or maybe a combination of some of these opulences, right? That's what attracts them. Think about anybody that we've been attracted to in the material world. Someone who is famous, someone who is beautiful, someone who is very smart, someone who's very strong. Rarely renunciation, but even renunciation. Someone who's very charitable. You know, Bill Gates is a classic example of someone. I like this example because if you can rewind your memory clock, when Bill Gates was building Microsoft, right, he was a very hated person. He was accused of creating a monopoly and extorting people, and because of the price of his software and all of this stuff. But he had great fame, he had great wealth. But it wasn't until he became very charitable that people became then very attracted to him and appreciated him. Right? So he had these qualities, right? So these, if they think about anyone, these qualities attract us to that person. Right? So now, if Krishna has full beauty, full strength, full fame, intelligence, wealth, and renunciation. And if we come to understand that, if I've never heard about Bill Gates, then I won't be attracted to him, of course, right? I don't have knowledge. I don't know. But as I begin to know about this person, there's a natural, oh, very nice, doing so much work here, you become close. So by learning about Krishna's opulences, our natural inclination will increase. And in this world, let's just carry this example forward, Bill Gates. He has great wealth. Does he have all the wealth? And how long he will be wealthy? Will he be wealthy 100 years from now? Another 10, 20, 30, 50 years, whatever he's going to live, and it's gone. And then somebody else will take that wealth. Okay? Someone who's very beautiful. At age 80, do they carry the same beauty they had at 20? We try to preserve it through all kinds of applications of ointments and creams and different therapies and cucumbers and this and that. But it doesn't preserve. Fame. We go from famous to infamous. Right? One misstep and one loses. So that even the material opulences we have, they're very temporary and they're very limited. But Krishna is eternally, youthfully beautiful, eternally intelligent, fame, strength, wealth, renunciation. So that is the position of Krishna. And that is why Srila Vyasadeva doesn't say Shri Krishna Uvacha. He says Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Okay? So this is the opulence. So is it clear how the opulences lead to our love? And again, if that opulence is used in a unloving way, then it won't lead to love, it'll lead to fear. Right? Because we know great personalities like Hiranyakashipu. He acquired great wealth. The wealth of the whole universe was his. Great strength. Right? Great fame. But he didn't have the mood of renunciation. So, these must be coupled all together for one to become. And that is why Krishna is the all-loving personality. And he says something very wonderful at the end of this chapter. Let's read the last 2 verses of this chapter. 41 and 42. Someone wants to read 41?
Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor.
And read the next one.
But what need is there, Arjun, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe.
Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from a spark of my splendor. If we take this statement short and attach it to all of our material attachments, whatever we may be attached to. I'm attached to this beautiful sunset over the lake. Everything is so beautiful. And then we remind ourselves, that is but a tiny spark of Krishna's complete splendor. So if I have so much attraction to that, then imagine when I come to know Krishna, how much attraction I'll have. Everything that we find beautiful, attractive within this material world is but a tiny spark of Krishna's total potency. That is his opulence in summary. And thus he says, what's the point to know the details, Arjuna? I can give you just a glimpse of them. But just step back and look at it in totality. Everything in this material world, just a spark. And knowing that, it can inspire us to unalloyed devotional service. The other aspect of Bhagavan, the opulences, is how we can become completely desireless in our bhakti, meaning wanting nothing for ourselves. How that mood to serve Krishna and have no expectation of anything in return, how that can manifest in the heart. When will it manifest? Or think about it, why is it not manifesting for us today? What's holding us back? What is our concern about giving everything to Krishna? What is our concern?
Fear that we lose something.
What would be left for us? Or what?
What will be left for us? Self-preservation. What about my 401k? What if my social security runs out? Where chapatis will come tomorrow? What about my health insurance? I'm speaking on one track only. But what holds us back from our surrender to Krishna when he says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto majji mam namaskuru, these 4 things he says to do, what holds us back, we may still do bhakti to Krishna because we understand he's all powerful, he is present everywhere. But it may be for some asking something in return. Until we come to learn that Krishna's opulences are so grand and he's got this unlimited mood of renunciation that Krishna loves to give to his devotees more than they can even conceive of what to ask. And the example is given like this, that if you had full faith that you go to the office and you're going to work, and the boss will give you a paycheck more than whatever you could ever have asked for, and you have faith in that, would you ever ask for a certain paycheck?
Which office is that?
There's an office. You just have to apply in Golok Vrindavan. They have unlimited open positions, and the application process is really easy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. And you're guaranteed a job placement. But that job exists. So, having faith in Krishna, in faith that Krishna will never run out of anything, he is unlimited. Oh, this person is becoming a devotee, maybe he won't have anything left for me. Like when we're in a prasad line and we see the gulab jamuns are going down one by one, and we start counting the people, 3, 2, oh, only 2 are, I'm done. Like this, what happens? But Krishna's supply of opulences, unlimited. So when one has faith in that, one unfearingly, with no worry, fully surrenders to Krishna and expresses no desire. Why? Because they know Krishna knows better what for me than I know for me. Because he's all knowledgeable. He knows what's better for me than what I can ask. So better I don't ask. Just serve. And that's unalloyed bhakti. And that's why in the 7th verse we read, Krishna says, one who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotion. If we're convinced of it, then pure bhakti can come. Until then, pure bhakti cannot come, because we'll always hold on. What about me? What about me? So that is why we'll spend, several weeks discussing these opulences to make us factually convinced. And there will be lots of repetition. But that repetition, at least for me, is good, because this is thick, hard to break. With a hammer, if you hit a stone wall once, it doesn't break. But if you keep hammering it over and over again, by repetition, that stone will break. So like that, we'll try to break the stone, like covering, they say in Srimad Bhagavatam, stone like heart. Okay? Any questions or comments? Yes.
So like the gopis, for example, they didn't know Krishna's opulences, or did they? Or I feel like they would be beyond that. But they had so much spontaneous love for Krishna.
Well,
Like,
once you enter the realm of pure bhakti, the devotee does not become attracted to the opulent features of the Lord. They become attracted to the intimate, loving features of the Lord. But they're aware of the potency of Krishna. But then, when one enters the realm of this highest pure devotional service, in particular Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna brings about his Yogamaya potency to cover even the knowledge of the opulences, to bring about this very intimate mood between Krishna and his devotees. A topic beyond today's conversation. But no, it's a good question, because ultimately we need to become aware of the opulences, but the opulences attract us to the loving nature of Krishna. Make sense?
Yeah.
We're not attracted to the opulences. Oh, because Krishna is rich, I want to love Krishna. Understand? Or because Krishna is beautiful, I want to love Krishna. Okay? Any other comments or questions?
I found that last sloka always interesting, that he spends the whole chapter talking about it, and in the end he says, what's the point of all this? And he just says that. Then it's incredible that even though this sloka exists, many people claim to be God.
Yeah. It's, and well, when we get to this, we'll talk. I mean, the other reason Krishna says this is because we can never describe Krishna's opulences. Even he himself, Ananta Shesh, is since the beginning of beginning, with millions of mouths, is speaking about the qualities and opulences and glories of Krishna, and yet cannot get to the end of them. So he's reminding us in this statement also that I can just give a synopsis, an indication. Any other questions or comments?
Maybe during another class or for some other shloka, if you can talk about the quality or how Krishna shows the quality of renunciation.
Okay. Yeah. That'll be, it's a very sweet topic. I can't hold back. I'll spend 1 minute on it now.
You can spend as much
Because
as you want.
Krishna's renunciation is, I mean, we see it right here. Right? He is the supreme personality of Godhead. Right? And he's renouncing that position, not just to anybody, but to his dear friend. And he is sitting on the chariot, driving for Arjuna. Now, in the battlefield, when Arjuna wanted the chariot to go to the left side, did he put his left turn signal on? Click, 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 click. Did he say, Krishna, turn left? You know how he indicated to turn left? With his foot. He would touch Krishna on the left side. Because you could not hear. There was so much noise. One could not rely on audible instructions. So it had to be manual. Now Krishna is received. How many of us are willing to do such menial service for Krishna?
That's an offense, isn't it? Touching Krishna with our foot.
If one has an offensive mentality. Yes, it is the greatest of all offenses. But that was the relationship Krishna accepted. Not very glamorous position. But for the love of his devotee, Krishna surrenders everything to them. And over and over again we see this. To the love of Mother Yashoda, he allows himself to be bound. Would you let anybody tie you up willingly? Would you let anybody? No. Let alone publicly in the courtyard of your house? where everybody can see you. But Krishna renounced his strength due to the love of Mother Yashoda. When Krishna would wrestle with the cowherd boys, they had the rule that whoever lost had to carry home on their shoulders the winning party. Now, who do you think won the wrestling match? Always the cowherd boys. Krishna renounced his strength for the love of his devotees. And he would very gleefully and happily carry home. When Mother Yashoda told Krishna, "You're going out to herd the cows, you must wear shoes." And what was Krishna's response? "Not unless you make 3.6 million shoes." Because everyone in Nanda Baba's cows are walking barefoot. If they are going to walk barefoot, I will walk barefoot. So like this, over and over and over again, Krishna does not use his opulences to extort. That's what the demons do. That's what Hiranyakashipu did. But Krishna uses his opulences to shower his devotees with unlimited mercy and blessings. And thus, one has faith in that, no need to ask. Just like child doesn't have to ask mother for food. Food will come, whether child asks or not, because mother has so much love. The devotee knows Krishna has so much love for me. I don't have to ask for anything. Just engage in loving relationship. Krishna will provide. Prahlad Maharaj never asked. Was fully fixed in his devotional service. So, just a glimpse, Krishna is always giving himself to his devotees. And that's why understanding Krishna's mood of renunciation is very important for us. It gives us faith that he's not going to hoard all of his opulences. Krishna doesn't enjoy his opulences until he can enjoy them with his devotees. Just like a wealthy person, right? A wealthy person is often very lonely. Why? Because they have no one to share their wealth with. Okay? But we can discuss more next week on that. We're going to talk a lot in this next couple of verses about hearing, Shravana, because we cannot know Krishna's opulences by any other process, but by hearing. Our own speculation, our own feeble mind has no potency. Not only ours, even the great yogis, even Lord Brahma himself, Krishna is going to tell us, cannot understand them. The only way to hear him, by listening again, as Krishna said in this first verse. So we'll talk a lot about hearing next week. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki, Nanda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.